Well, the master meets the future. In the NFL, the Mets heat up this winter with acquisitions, and Penn State grapplers remain unbeaten. It's Monday Night Sports Talk. Welcome in, everybody, as we head into a Monday night, an exciting one at that, as we soon to wrap up the NFL season. What a game it was yesterday. A couple of games, matter of fact. One was a blowout, and the other one was, you know what? I'm hearing crying going on. Joining us tonight on the Sports Talk, we've got Dave Shannon, Altoona. Chad States in Huntington tonight. Guys, welcome in. Dave, how you doing? You shoveled out yet?
Yeah, I did get shoveled out. Just fresh off a talk show about the Erie explosion. Some sad news there.
Oh, no.
And Greg, just as a note to you, you sound like you did 1 week where you're way off in the distance, and I know you had to switch some USB stuff around or something to make you a little more audible to us guys. But, yeah, just so you know, that's
all right. Let's try this here. And then Chad standing by tonight. Chad's in Huntington. Chad, how you making out this evening, man? Everything cool? I think he's there. Or at least he was. We set up earlier this evening. But if Chad's listening, he'll join us in just a moment. Dave, let's talk a little bit about these games that were happening yesterday. Of course, I watched.
Okay, Chad, are you there?
I'm here. I have no audio on him, though, at all.
Oh, he has
all right,
no.
Well, let's just go ahead and do the show without Greg then.
Yeah, go ahead. Can you hear me, Dave?
It's Monday Night Sports Talk, and we'll wait for Greg to get that stuff, and he'll talk to us when he's ready to go. But hopefully we're still out there, and people are able to hear us as we do the show. And
if they're
Greg,
not, you and I are just having a nice conversation amongst two guys. So
oh, yeah. Can you guys hear me there?
There he is.
Okay.
He's back.
I'm sorry about that. For some reason, we were switching the wrong switchers here. But we're live on the air. Dave and Chad, welcome in. Let's talk about the first game of two yesterday. Of course, the AFC Championship, where the Patriots kind of lagged behind. Denver beating the Patriots 20-18. First off, Chad, I'll ask you, and then Dave, were you expecting kind of play the Patriots had yesterday?
No, I was not. And I tip my hat to Wade Phillips and that defense for forcing New England into doing what they did. Just an outstanding job. I haven't seen a defensive effort like that since Belichick did it to the Red Gun offense or the Bills offense all the way back in the early 90s. So hats off to Wade Phillips and just, getting not just getting pressure on Tom Brady, but getting the right kind of pressure on Tom Brady that didn't allow him to distribute the football like he normally does.
Yeah, Dave, watching that game, I kind of felt bad because the Pats actually missed that field goal in the beginning. And, the first thing came in my mind, and I know I shouldn't have thought this, what's the guy's name? Gostkowski? That was the
Gostkowski.
Yeah. The guy hadn't missed since, I think, 2006 when he was in college. And the first thing I thought was, there's no way he could have missed that.
Yeah. That was a surprising thing to see, and maybe a forebearer of things to come for the Patriots in the end. But I think Chad nailed it. And I've contended this all along that it's very easy to beat Tom Brady and the Patriots, and that is if you can bring pressure on him. Now, that doesn't mean that just because you blitz, you're going to put pressure on him or the team, because you also have to have the coverage downfield so that he has no one to throw to, because he can make quick decisions. And yesterday, they had him covered downfield, and they were in the backfield as Brady was trying to sort through his receivers downfield. Now, there were, a couple of times that were, and I was rooting for the Denver Broncos. I would imagine most people in this area were, just because we all hate the Patriots. And the bottom line was he was able to complete some of those passes to Gronkowski. Were just absolutely amazing. And it looked like at the end of the game, it was going to come down to one of those crazy finishes again, where Brady was going to bring him back. They were going to tie the game. They were going to end up in overtime, and then those stupid Patriots were going to win. But, hey, credit once again to the Denver defense for being able to get in there, tip that extra point attempt up in the air, that pass, and be able to intercept it and bring that game to an end. So
Chad,
now
Go ahead. Yeah, I was going to ask Chad if he thought it was more the Von Miller show than it was the Peyton Manning show yesterday.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I mean, Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware, were absolutely the two MVPs of that team yesterday.
Right.
Peyton's now to the point where he is managing a game, and I think he realizes that that's what he has to do. Take care of the football.
Mm-hmm.
Don't turn it over. He did not throw an interception yesterday. He hasn't thrown one in the preseason or postseason, maybe one if I'm missing it. But he's just being a caretaker, which is a different role than what Manning is used to be doing.
Right.
But honestly, it's working. So let that defense do what they need to do. And just, as the opportunities present themselves, just take what's given to you and keep plugging along. So, hats off for Manning changing his game to match what his team needs him to do.
Dave, did it seem to you like Peyton might have been struggling at times yesterday with short passes or, overthrowing guys, trying to sort of like circumvent, I don't know, just looked like he was getting older and tired?
I think you got to realize, too, that the Patriots had a hell of a defense out there. Even though they did lose the game, they still played a hell of a defensive game. And I think you have to remember that. What that does do, when you have a defense that's really pushing you as the quarterback, you start to try to make things happen.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can make things happen. Sometimes you can't. And, the times you can't, you end up throwing an interception or throwing one in the dirt or throwing it behind the intended receiver. And it makes you look like, it's not your best game. Well, it's not your best game because that defense is doing such a job on you. So you had two really good defensive teams out there yesterday. And one thing I do want to say, in my opinion, the way the game was managed by the Broncos offensive coordinator at the end of the game was horrendous.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely horrendous.
You're talking about the ability to kick that field goal or maybe to score. Do you think Belichick kind of softened up? I mean, what do you think the problem was?
No, I'm talking about Denver in this case, and the fact that when you get the football with 2 minutes left to go, what the hell was it about the rest of that football game that made you think that you could hold the ball for 2 minutes by rushing it?
Yeah.
You had like 3 rushing plays. You had some pretty nice rushing yardage, but it was only because you had 3 rushing plays that were huge.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only reason that looked that good. Why in the hell would you go out there when you made your money all day, dance with the one that brung you, like Terry Bradshaw always says?
Yes.
And they did not dance with the one that brung them, and it almost cost them the game in the end. That is playing to lose. It's not playing to win when you take yourself out of your game and just throw that all away and start trying to rush the ball every time just to eat up the clock. You got to get a first down for that to work.
Yeah, Chad, you see that same thing yesterday in that scenario? Meanwhile, Tom Brady, as you guys both mentioned, the guy took like 23 hits. I think that's the most of any quarterback this season. I mean, you piggyback on the same idea that Dave has, that, there could have been something done near the end of the game for the Patriots to win that game?
I think the Broncos needed to at least go for first downs. I mean, it's frustrated me with, anytime you see that in a football game, we had that happen with Penn State and Maryland 2 years ago, where Franklin just decided, hey, I'm going to run the ball and forget that on the other side was this great kicker that Maryland had.
Clock
well,
management,
in this case, you're going to forget on who's on the other side, and that's Brady and Gronkowski, and you don't want to give them any time on the clock.
Right.
And even on that 2-point conversion, Gronkowski was open.
Yeah.
And, Brady uncharacteristically threw back across the field and got that ball tipped.
Yeah.
But Gronkowski was open. So you can't, I agree with Dave 100%. That's on the offensive coordinator. He's got to script better plays that gives that offense a shot at getting a first down in that situation, and not let time be on the side of New England. That's the last guy you want to have the ball is Tom Brady.
It's Monday Night Sports Talk here on the AirNetwork.net. Greg Banks in the studio, Dave Shannon in Altoona, Chad States in Huntington. Hey, piggybacking on that, I was watching Twitter during the game yesterday, and it just blew up. There was all those questions that, the Patriots could have won if, and now you can actually fill in the blanks, but I'm going to throw this statement out. There are a bunch of people on Twitter that said the Patriots could have won if they simply kicked a field goal with those 6 minutes left as they were trailing 20-12. Because they're saying the extra 3 points would have been the difference in a game decided by 2. Instead, the Pats went for it on 4th and 1 and failed to convert. First you, Dave, and then Chad, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you're in a game there where nothing's a guarantee. You know, you can feel as confident as you want about the way your defense is playing, whether they're going to be able to get the ball back, whether you're going to be able to drive down the field. It's still a game that has uncertainty that is attached to it. And when you get into a position where, should I take the points or should I go for it, and you're feeling really good about yourself, you go ahead and you go for it. I mean, if you want to take another coach and take a page out of his playbook, it would be Mike Tomlin. How many times did he go on 4th down this year?
That's true, yeah. And that was a thing that you alluded, I think Chad did, about Franklin. That's sort of like his strategy now in college football with Penn State, going for it on 4th down. Kind of taking a look at that, Chad. Again, that question is out there, what if? Was there really any what if for the Patriots yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, you can frame that up as far as, hey, should you have kicked a field goal in that spot? But eventually, you've got to get the touchdown. So it doesn't matter one way or the other whether you take it now or you try to get it later. You've got to get into the end zone. So I don't fault Belichick for what he did. Given the fact that the AFC Championship and a trip to the Super Bowl is on the line. I would go for this. I would go for the touchdown first and then try to get the field goal second in that situation. But Gostkowski missing the extra point.
Right.
But honestly, it comes down to New England's offensive line. I mean, that game was won and lost in the trenches.
Yeah.
New England's offensive line could not handle the defensive pressure that the Denver's front four and even a couple of their linebackers was throwing at them. And that's always the recipe for disaster with New England. That's how the New York Giants beat them in 2 Super Bowls.
Oh, yeah.
Great defensive line play. That way you allow your linebackers and your secondaries to drift back and cover all of Brady's options. If you've got a great front four, Belichick's in trouble. And that's just the way it goes. And that's what happened yesterday. Hey,
Monday Night Sports Talk here on the airnetwork.net. You can pick us up online or on TuneIn Radio at the airnetwork.net. Chad States in Huntington, Dave Shannon in Altoona, Greg Banks in the studio. By the way, we have a studio line, guys. You can always call us now at area code 814-242-4845. We are hooked up tonight, Dave, so that could be a problem with reconfiguring the system. We'll work on that. But again, the number to call if you'd like to is 814-242-4845. You can chime in on anything regarding sports here on Monday Night Sports Talk here on the airnetwork.net. Okay, so we talked about the Denver and, of course, beating the Patriots 20-18. I think Gronk almost had a chance to catch a ball in the end zone near the end of the game. And, of course, he was just screaming bloody murder. I think he thought there was all kinds of interaction. What do you think? Just a lot of whining, Dave?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wham. Okay, first of all, what he's saying is this guy's holding my jersey so I can't jump.
Right.
Let me tell you something. And I watched that play, and I looked at it, and I thought it was a good no call by the officials because I don't think Gronkowski on his best day could have necessarily been able to jump.
Didn't look like he even attempted, no.
Yeah, so it's like boo-hoo.
Yeah.
That I had no, in my opinion, there was no doubt that was the right call to make in that particular case. There was another, couple of calls there that were no calls that I thought were good.
Yeah, clearly. That's what I was going to ask Chad. Clearly, Chad, there were calls all afternoon that weren't made that were obvious. So it really didn't even come down to that one last pass in the end zone. You agree?
Yeah, and I think the refs did actually a pretty formidable job in that game. I didn't see anything that was glaring that says, "Oh my goodness!"
Right.
If they would have called this right, it would have flipped the script, so to speak. You've got to let them play out these championship games and let the players decide who's going to win it, and not let a referee's decision happen. And we're going to talk today about a great football game and not about a missed call that blew the game for one team or the other. So anytime you can talk about the teams and how they did and leave the referees out, the referees did a good job.
And that's a good thing. Once you can ignore those referees and just let them play, hey, it's all good. Meanwhile, Denver defeats Patriots 20-18 to move into Super Bowl 50. And let's talk about that NFC championship game between the Cardinals and the Panthers in Carolina yesterday. I'll start with you, Chad, first. Final score 49-15. Was that something that you expected? Did you expect Cardinals to stay with them closer?
Yeah, actually, I had thought that the Cardinals were actually going to win that.
I think you did take them yesterday.
Yeah,
That's right.
I did.
Okay.
I would have taken it, but I've learned through the NFL playoffs, don't take who I'm taking because the other team's going to win. That's just the way this is going to go. So later on, when we make our Super Bowl picks, pick opposite of me, and you'll be safe.
Yeah, I'm going to go back into this. I'm going to go back into this text that you sent me yesterday because I'm pretty sure you put down Broncos and the Cardinals in the Super Bowl. But go ahead.
No, I put down Patriots and the Cardinals in the Super Bowl.
Oh, is that
exactly
what it was?
I thought.
All right.
and what happened? We got the Panthers, we got the Broncos. So
there's
my theory right there.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, Carolina, they brought it. I mean, in the two playoff games, they completely showed up and made the opposing team look like they didn't even belong on the same field. And that's very hard to do.
Yeah.
I mean, Seattle is a good football team. They were on a roll going into that game.
Yeah.
And they got laughed out of the stadium. The Arizona was considered probably the best, the most complete team in the National Football League, offense, defense, and special teams, and they didn't even belong on the same field as what Carolina did yesterday. So, hats off to Ron Rivera and what he has done, because he has put together a team that has made you think about the team and in its entirety and not about individual players other than Cam Newton.
Yeah,
let me tell you what, guys. I'm gonna digress here 1 second.
Go ahead.
Think about this. At any point in time, did you think about Cam Newton as being anything other than just a quarterback?
No.
Just a phenomenal football player. No,
what an athlete.
Because that's where thank goodness today's society has gotten out that we are not sitting here saying, hey, we have a black quarterback in the Super Bowl.
Right.
Because you know what we have? We have a very special athlete
as
a quarterback in the Super Bowl. And we're not talking about anything else. And
I am glad
great thing.
I am glad you mentioned that because Dave and I go back to the days of was it Doug Williams and the Redskins, Dave? And and how many times did they tout him as the great black quarterback, Again, just kind of throwing this out from my perspective, anytime somebody uses, well, he's a good athlete, that's sort of like code. I mean, he's a football player. He's complete as far as I'm concerned, Cam Newton. And we'll talk a little bit about him in a second. But Dave, kind of relating to what Chad was just saying, do you think Carson Palmer was out of his league yesterday? I mean, here again, this guy has played for several teams, including Cincinnati Bengals. And the first thing I think about the Bengals is they usually choke in the playoffs. You think that's what happened yesterday with Palmer? He was overwhelmed?
Absolutely. I think he was really a bit overwhelmed in the game against the Green Bay Packers.
Oh, yeah.
And if it wouldn't have been for Larry Fitzgerald taking the team on his shoulders, they wouldn't have won that game either.
Right.
But, bottom line is, if the Cardinals really want to go somewhere, they need to get a real honest-to-goodness quarterback. I hate to say that, Carson. I've never played the game, and I don't know what you go through if he happens to hear this by accident somehow. But the bottom line is, I just don't think that Carson Palmer's the guy to lead them into the future. Now, there's a couple of things I do want to say about that game.
Yeah.
And the one is, we were talking about the game in the trenches.
Yeah.
The game in the trenches, good Lord, have you ever seen an offensive line other than maybe an old Steelers offensive line that you can think of in the past that was able to give their quarterback as much time as Cam Newton was given? I watched him on one play look off 4 receivers and go to the 5th guy in the pattern to complete a pass. There is no way on God's green earth that you're going to win a football game if you're on defense and that quarterback had that much time in the pocket.
Yeah.
He didn't have to move out of the pocket. He was still in the pocket.
Jump in there, Chad, anywhere you want to as Dave, talks a little bit of that so we can get some dialogue going, if you will.
But
he's absolutely right with that. There's no doubt. Their offensive line was dominant, but don't forget, you've got a quarterback that's an offensive lineman himself, too.
Right.
I mean, he is an unstoppable force. When he decides that he's going to run the football, you're not stopping him. And I don't know that I've ever seen somebody move from college to the NFL. When you look at most quarterbacks that are built like Cam Newton coming out of college, you just think, all right, he can't, just because he can run the ball doesn't mean he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. And in fact, that's usually a detriment. Most of these guys can't throw. Well, not only is Cam Newton a great passing quarterback, his running game still translates to the NFL, and that's amazing.
Yeah, let me ask you about that, Dave. At the beginning of the show, I opened up with the master meets the future, meaning Peyton may lay it down after this season, but Cam Newton is certainly the future of the NFL for now as we know it. Is he going to be the prototypical quarterback that we see now? I mean, a guy that can actually look over top of his linemen and pick out receivers. I mean, what do you think in terms of his size and his stature and his weight and his speed?
Well, that's already happened. That's become, I mean, if you look across, even at the college level, you see that college coaches are trying to find those bigger guys to be quarterbacks. If they have the athletic ability, they're going to be a quarterback at a major Division I school. And it's going to continue that way. And to be honest with you, and people can, go against me on this if they want, but Ben Roethlisberger actually set the mold for the new prototypical quarterback for the NFL because of his size. And back when he was much younger, his ability to run the football.
Right.
And, through his injuries, it's amazing to me that the guy puts up with as much as he does and is still able to play the game at the level that he does. Bottom line is, now there's one thing I do want to say.
Go ahead.
And I kind of took a little bit of offense to this. And that's to watch the one thing about Cam Newton that I don't like.
Right.
Okay. And it's like you can do whatever you want, as far as what kind of protection you wear and whatever. But to be honest with you, as big as the man is, I am shocked that he goes out every game and has that chest armor on. The guy looks like a frickin', Knights of the Round Table guy out there. You got a helmet on him. He's got the breastplate on. He's got shoulder pads on.
Yeah.
It's like, good Lord. The one thing I did notice, though, while I was complaining about the fact that he wraps himself in that rib protection, every game, he has no rib injuries. That used to be the type of thing where a quarterback never wanted that because it would interfere with his ability to throw the football.
Chad, I know Chad's biting his tongue. I'm going to give Chad a chance to jump in there in a second because I don't know the guy's medical history, but I remember he rolled over his vehicle years ago, and I believe he broke some ribs.
Yeah, but generally, you go through that for about a couple of months afterward, and then you take that off.
What do you think, Chad? Maybe he's comfortable in that now? I mean, it's like a guy wearing a face mask or something.
That's exactly right. You're playing what makes you comfortable. It might be just a mental state where, I'm going to put this on and then I just feel good because I know that if I take a shot, I have a good chance of not being hurt. That's why some people wear a knee brace, it might not do anything for you, physically, but psychologically, it might just help you to be able to move a little bit better.
Did you guys notice whenever Tom Brady would slide yesterday on his left leg, there was a knee brace on there that I never really saw much this season because I didn't see him slide that often. And I'm not so sure it's because he actually had any injury, but maybe he feels comfortable with that knee brace, Dave. You know what I mean?
Well, back to this, it's the same principle, Greg. You were talking about Cam Newton having an injury in the past. Excuse me. And I think you're dealing with the same thing with Brady. That he's, he did have a knee problem in the past. And it's probably the type of thing, once again, mentally.
It's mental. Mental.
He feels more, he may be willing to take a run where he wouldn't have been willing to do that maybe if he didn't have that brace on.
Well, there again, we can talk about that further about protection that people use and why they use it. Not every hockey player is wearing a cup, unfortunately. Not every baseball player is wearing one either. And all it takes is one dude to go down. You know what I'm saying? And Dave, we'll talk about that when we get to the hockey section of the program tonight here on the airnetwork.net with Monday Night Sports Talk. We've got Chad States in Huntington, Dave Shannon, by the way, in Altoona. And I don't know why I want to keep saying State College, but anyhow,
I have no idea.
That's because you worked there for years. You know what I mean?
It's an evil town.
Well, let's talk about, finally, there it is, the Panthers, man. This is their second Super Bowl appearance. They're headed up by Ron Rivera. And I go back, and Chad, God love you for sending the 50 years of the NFL Super Bowl. And I'm looking at this. What is this exactly? The Ultimate 50. Now, is this a game online, or you just want to kind of get our perspectives? Who's the greatest of them all since '66? What is that?
What this is CBS Sports decided to employ Stratomatic, so to speak, which is a strategic game where you plug in a bunch of stats and it says, hey, based on this type of criterion that this team is going to win. So they decided to field the 50 greatest teams in the Super Bowl, or the 49, I think, champions here, and decide who's going to kind of like go bracket it out and win this thing.
Yeah.
So, I figured I'd just shoot that out to you guys. It can give us some good discussion, and we could take a look at that and see what happens. So, they have it seeded. The number one seed overall was the 1972 Dolphins, which because you're undefeated doesn't make you the best team. But, hey, that's what they decided to do.
I see the 79 Steelers in that first bracket, too.
And they lost. And I forwarded you guys this, that it's interesting that how the Steelers fared here. Yeah. They had the Steelers losing to the 2011 Giants.
Okay. And
I don't agree with that at all.
Weren't the 2011 Giants like 7-9 that season? They just barely snuck into the wild card or something and won the Super Bowl?
Exactly.
Holy crap.
They got hot at the right time, but, they're saying, hey, they could beat the 79 Steelers, which I, had a hard time believing. But the biggest
one, by the way, the final on that was 34-28, if I'm reading the sheet correctly.
It is. That's exactly right. But the biggest one is if you look over to the other side, and what I truly believe was the best of the Steelers Super Bowl teams in 1978, they have them losing to Peyton Manning's Colts 31-30. Now, I don't think that's ever going to happen, boys.
No, I don't think so either. And here's the other side of that. We're looking at different eras here. Speaking of protection, there was very little protection back in the old days. Jack Lambert and those guys, God love them. You know what? They would even take their teeth out and gnaw on your bones while they were like tackling you. So
and here's the other thing
that'll be something to really digest.
Is how would they be able to play that game? Because wouldn't Indianapolis as head coach be in part of the Steelers secondary in '78?
That's right.
Who the hell's in Indianapolis? Tony Dungy's going to be playing for the Steelers. He's not going to be coaching the Colts in that game.
And some of these guys would be
on that criteria alone.
Yeah, you're right. And Dave, some of these guys would be wearing skirts as far as that's concerned. So you know what? Listen, we'll talk more about that next week because actually it'll be, I guess, the week before the actual Super Bowl. So we'll be able to kind of ponder this and look at it, Chad, because I just got it this evening. Yeah. But I appreciate you doing that. Let me just kind of wrap up this Panther-Cardinals game by saying this. Nothing actually went right for Arizona, Dave. Would you agree in this game, especially that first half where they actually gave the ball away 3 times collectively? Those 3 first-half turnovers, they were fumbles, interceptions, and another fumble. They cost the team like about 20 points right up front, would you say? And so they should have never even shown up for that game.
Well, maybe not should have never, but didn't show up.
They didn't show up
for that game. It's to a degree, it doesn't surprise me. I sort of thought that here was the thing that I now makes it really difficult for me to pick against Carolina.
Right.
And that was they had this propensity here at the end of the season to fold in the second half.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And they did not fold. They did anything but fold in the second half yesterday against Arizona. If they can do that against the Denver Broncos, it's going to be a tough road to hoe for the Denver Broncos coming up. That being said, I still want to see the Broncos win because here's why.
Well, Peyton Manning, go ahead.
I want to see that happen because I just want him gone. Okay? I don't want to have to hear him singing the frickin' nationwide insurance jingle.
When he was actually going through his cadence yesterday, all I could think of, if he when he was in the huddle, he was thinking that in his mind.
Chicken parm,
Omaha.
God.
But don't you think that it's going to get worse if he does win?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yes, he's not playing football anymore, but I think things get worse. I mean, he's going to be on Letterman. He's going to be on everything else. So if you don't want the exposure, you want him to lose that game to walk away.
What I'm hoping...
Listen, he's not coming back and going to be the quarterback of that team.
No.
This is it. This is the final straw. So
this is his last game.
So
yeah.
I don't think you want them to win based on that criteria, Dave.
But listen, the guy has made a ton of money. Let's face it. He's been in the league. He's 39 years old. It is time to probably give it up. I believe Brady's only like a year younger than him. Although Brady looks like he might be able to go another, what do you think, maybe 2 or 3 years yet?
He might be able to get 2 if he doesn't get hit really bad at some point during the during his playing time.
And conversely, you said, Dave, last week when you and I were kind of like doing this alone, lone wolves, as it were, you said about Ben. I mean, we typically have to think, Ben's kind of like his days are coming too. These guys are getting in that age. They're those quarterbacks from that era. Let me ask you this real quick, Dave and Chad. You can jump in there before we wrap up this thing with the Panthers, and then we'll get your Super Bowl prediction. Cam Newton, everybody's jumping on him on Twitter. They jumped on him on Facebook. I notice it's usually old dudes, and when I say old dudes, in their 50s, 60s, and 70s that don't like his attitude, Dave. The reality is millennials or those X-Geners, whatever they call these younger people, they love him because he's so loving. He gives the ball to the kids. He puts on a show. He grew up in that WWE era, I guess, and video games. What do you think? I mean, does that have anything to do? And you think it's going to become one of those situations in the next 2 weeks? That's all they're going to talk about. Is here you have Peyton Manning, the nice guy, and here you have this guy that's a circus clown. What's a perception there?
Well, that may come out in the wash, so to speak, but the bottom line is who's going to be able to quarterback their team to a victory in the end.
Yeah.
And I don't know that you can look at that and discount. I cannot discount Cam Newton anymore. I just thought his performance yesterday, and believe me, if he was that focused for that championship game, I think he will be doubly focused, for this game that's coming up, the Super Bowl. And that to me is the bottom line when you get to this point, when you're headed into the Super Bowl, and he's got the stuff to back up whatever attitude
That's what I'm saying.
That he does have.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, Chad, what do you see among your peers? I mean, like if you're sitting in a bar and you see Cam Newton, I mean, what are you guys saying? Because you're younger than us. For the most part, do you kind of agree with Cam having fun and his playmates too? Or his teammates, I should say, having fun.
Chad?
I just lost Chad, I think. I hope not. He looks like he's still on there, Dave. But anyhow,
it does say he's there. But
he may have to talk to one of the kids because he's probably at the house or something.
Could
but I'm just curious, what those certain folks of certain generations feel about. Here he comes. I'll add him back to the group. Yeah, sorry about that, Chad. We lost you for some reason.
Yeah, I dropped out for some reason.
Okay, that's probably a network thing. So
if I'm sitting in a bar with my buddies, what do I see? I see a guy who's having fun.
Thank
and
you.
Want to insult him about that.
Yeah.
And that, I guess that's my biggest problem is you see a guy who's doing things really no differently than some of the other quarterbacks. What's any different than Brett Favre running around and Aaron Rodgers, acting like he's shooting a couple of pistols up in the air or something like that.
Yeah.
There's no difference whatsoever. He's having fun, and fun is translating into success.
Yeah.
Don't mix this up with somebody who's got an attitude. Look at what the guy does after he scores a touchdown. What's he do?
He's looking for a kid to give the ball.
He hands the ball to a fan.
Yeah.
Well, that's just wonderful because we pay tickets so they can have a salary.
I saw that little girl. I saw that somebody scored it. Yeah, somebody.
Look at him at the podium.
Yeah.
Did you see him at the podium?
Yeah.
He was not dressed like a punk.
No, he's dressed nicely. Yeah.
Very articulately.
Yes, he is.
And answers every question. Doesn't shy away from anything at all. The guy is a stand-up individual.
Mm-hmm.
He gets a bad rap for what happened at Auburn.
Right.
And I really
that's what I'm saying.
That.
Yeah.
They think that his recruiting was illegal and all this and all that. It might have been. But what's that have to do with Cam Newton personally?
Right, exactly.
Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. And I was just curious what your perception was, because I know a lot of older guys probably say, they didn't do that back in those. Well, see, I'm sorry. I am beginning to understand, Dave, and I think you're there too. It's not ever going to be like it was back in the old days. You know what I mean?
Well, and the other thing is that and the thing I don't mind about that is he's got the stuff to back it up. So, everybody has their own little routine.
You talk a good game. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, now he's not Ike Taylor. He's not a punk.
No.
And Ike Taylor, I cannot believe
I couldn't back it up, though.
The NFL Network gave that punk a spot on TV.
Are you serious? He can't even talk.
Well, now he's on TV and he's playing the punk role on TV.
Are you serious?
And it's like, I can't deal with that.
Yeah,
I can't deal with you being a punk.
Yeah, Chad,
go ahead.
Guy
that's having fun and is confident in what he's doing, like Cam Newton. Hey, that's fine.
And you know what the cool thing is, Chad? He gets his teammates involved in it. I mean, they all seem to be having a hell of a good time.
It's not that he gets his teammates involved.
Yeah.
He's a leader. So they're following somebody who knows how to lead.
Right.
That's not something that you can just learn. That's something you're born with.
Yeah. And Dave
and he has that it factor that gets people to follow him.
Yeah.
He has a calm demeanor about him. He has a fun side of him.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that in sports? Guys, let's not forget this is entertainment.
Yeah.
This is no different than me going and watching Star Wars at a movie theater.
Exactly.
Because those actors that are out there, they're getting paid millions of dollars. Do you think that Harrison Ford stepped on the screen and just got paid, a couple $100,000 and walked off?
wish. Yeah.
No, he made big money, and we don't talk about that because he's an entertainer. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
That's no different than what these guys are, and it's high time that the NFL recognizes that I've got to get on page with this. And I'm not saying
it's helping the league.
What's wrong with bringing back something like the Fun Bunch that Washington had back in the day where they would celebrate, or Billy White Shoes Johnson doing a little bit of his dance. I mean, we talk about Cam Newton, but it was far more over the top until the NFL decided to crack down. The Icky Shuffle.
I remember that. Yeah,
problem.
They're bringing those commercials back.
The Icky Shuffle? No, he didn't. You know why he didn't? Because we put him on a commercial where he slammed meat down on the ground and he's having a good time.
And the sad part is there's a generation that has no idea when they see that commercial. What the hell's that guy doing? They have no freaking idea. And it's like, and I'm sitting there thinking, my God, I would just watch something on E60 the other night, guys, if you give me a minute. There is a gaming phenomenon going on in the world. EA's running this thing where they pack these arenas with thousands of people from all over the world, and there's teams of these gamers, and they put this stuff on huge screens. It's like a rock star, and it's sort of like a rock concert, and these kids are making $6 million if they win these video games. So obviously there's this Russian kid who moved to America. He's 16, and when he won his money, they said, well, I forget what his name was, Boris or something. What are you going to do with your money? He goes, well, one, I'm going to buy a Lamborghini. Now he's 16, and he's playing games. And so I'm making that equation kind of like, well, Cam Newton's a kid. He's getting paid, but he's having fun too.
Yeah, but he's actually doing it for real as opposed to virtually sitting on his ass, not having any type of life moving forward.
And that's true.
Which is exactly what Mr. Ruski will be doing. Exactly. Because he'll be drinking grape soda, eating a lot of stuff he probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
And really, probably at the end of the day, he's not going to the prom.
I hope, you're right. Poor Boris is not ever going to get laid. And I got to be honest here. I looked at the kid.
He'll be buying his something on the side, what he'll be doing.
He's going to get locked up for porn at some given time. All right. So listen, this is Monday Night Sports Talk here on the airnetwork.net. Greg Banks in the studio. Dave Shannon, Altoona, Chad States in Huntington. Okay, let me get your predictions. Here it is in 2 weeks. February 7th, I believe it is, somewhere in California. They're going to play Super Bowl 50.
San Francisco.
Is it San Francisco? Okay.
Yes.
So now we're going to have Denver play the Panthers. So, Dave, I'm going to take, now this is all being recorded because we play it back throughout the week. I'm going to take your prediction on Super Bowl 50. Who wins? And what's the score?
I'm taking the Panthers, and they're going to win that game 38-24.
Okay. And Chad, what's your prediction on that game? That's Dave's.
All right. Now, as we have stated earlier, I have lost every single one of these playoff games that I have predicted. So if you do replay this, and I am wrong, I told you so. Mm-hmm. All right. So I'm going to just digress here just a second until I get into my pick.
Take your time. We're stretching for time on television, Dave. You know how that goes. It's stretch.
This very much reminds me of Super Bowl 25 and how apropos that we are 25 years later.
And I don't remember that, so jog my memory. Who in the hell played in Super Bowl 25?
We had this vaunted Bills offense that comes in with a no-huddle that was scoring points at will. And, in fact, in the AFC Championship game, it hung 52 on Oakland in a very cold Buffalo day.
Yes.
Looked like they were unstoppable rolling into the Super Bowl.
Woo!
And who meanders in with them? Well, it ends up being the New York Giants who, by the way, beat the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
Which San Francisco was quarterbacked by some also ran at that point in time named Montana, which it's only a state.
Yeah,
so
that was the end of his career, too. But
that doesn't really mean anything. So now let's flip the script here. Let's go 25 years into the future, and let's look at Carolina, who just blew away and absolutely smoked Arizona on the field. The game wasn't even close from the beginning.
Exactly.
Okay. So they're waltzing into the Super Bowl on a complete high, and here's Denver that's coming in that just beat some guy named Brady, who really I don't know if he's a first ballot Hall of Famer or not. I can't really tell because somebody had put together a great defense a la Wade Phillips, and for the Giants it was Bill Belichick. So now we get to the Super Bowl, and let's just figure out what happened there. The Giants dominated time of possession and beat the vaunted Bills offense.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of leaning towards Denver to win this, which is why I'll pick Carolina to win. I'll pick Carolina to win it, and I'm going to pick them at 24. I'm going to go a little bit lower because I think Denver's defense is really, really good.
Okay.
I'm going to pick them to win 24-14. I don't think Denver's really going to get off of the snide because I think Carolina's defense is good. But 24-14 Carolina.
Right. Okay, so
that just to get to that.
We have, and that's good because I learned something because I'm sitting here going, well, who in hell played in Super Bowl 25? I can't remember sometimes who played last year.
Listen, if Denver wins, all I did was set myself up to say, if Denver wins, I told you so.
Okay.
I've got to play both sides of the fence because I suck at predicting this year, guys.
I am never going to bet the house or the ranch on you, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm just going to tell people I'm not even playing that game. But anyhow, Dave says 38-24 Panthers in Super Bowl 50, and Chad, you said Panthers 24-14. So we'll see how that works out. My feeling is I'd like to see the Panthers win it, but I'm kind of nostalgic like you are, Dave. I think Manning's on his way out. I can't give him the game that day because I do definitely think that Cam Newton and they have such a balanced offense and defense. They are so much balanced. So I'm going to let them win that game by 7. I'm not going to give you a score. I just think that Panthers win Super Bowl 50, and it's going to be a significant year and a change in history on February the 7th. So the Panthers by 7. It's Monday Night Sports Talk here on the airnetwork.net. Chad States Huntington, Dave Shannon via Skype in Altoona, Greg Banks live in the studio. By the way, we have a studio line you can use now, 814-242-4845. That's 814-242-4845. You know, I put on the Air Network Facebook page that it was toll-free, and then I thought, well, I don't know if it's really toll-free, but, you know, when you use your cell phone, Dave and Chad, it's pretty much like you buy a package, right? It's unlimited.
Oh, yeah, you can call anywhere you want to.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking.
It's your time that, you know, I'm still on a time plan. I don't have unlimited phone calls.
Okay, yeah.
But by the same time, it's still free.
Yeah.
As long as you're within the time that you bought, it's free. It's free. So.
Well, Chad, you wouldn't have this problem, and I don't know if you have this problem either, Dave. When I meet chicks nowadays, nobody wants to pick up the phone. They want to text you. It's like, hey, well, I'll text you later tonight. Well, no, I want to pick up the phone, even if it's my cell phone, and actually talk to a voice. Because I'm not good at this texting stuff. You know, Chad, you probably use that all the time, huh? That texting?
I've been married for 7 years. The last thing I want to do is pick up the phone. I can say, "Hey, I missed a text. Sorry."
Does your wife text you, or does she call you? I mean, does she actually text you, or does she call you?
Yeah, most of the time it's a text message. Yeah, because a lot of times we're at work if we're communicating back and forth.
Yeah.
When we're at home, it's not like I'm going to text her when she's in the living room.
Well, let me ask you this, because
hey, honey, I need this. But when we're out and about, the other thing that's nice about the text messages, I will say this, is you don't know what that person is doing on the other end.
Yeah.
If I get a text message, I'm less apt to pick up my phone if I'm driving the car.
Oh, yeah.
I can just let it sit there and then get it whenever I need to, as opposed to having to think, hey, it's an emergency, somebody's calling me. So, I'm more into the texting than I am to the general phone conversation. But that's with my wife that I see every day of my life.
Well, now you're a parent of teenagers, man. Let me ask you this. Could your teenager be upstairs and it's time for dinner? Would you text them, or do you just say, hey, it's time for dinner? Because I know too many people that are texting their kids. I mean, I'm serious. They have no personal relationship with these kids. Are you one of those parents that?
No, that doesn't happen here at all. In fact, I enjoy yelling at them.
That's what I'm saying.
It's actually kind of sporting.
Yeah.
Well, because the first time it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So it's actually kind of sporting to know that you have to really pick up your game the second or third time.
Yeah.
It's meaning you're thinking about the consequence right after that. So no, we don't. We're not texting back and forth in the house at all.
Unfortunately, I missed that with my children. They're all in their mid to late 30s, so we didn't have all that stuff. So it was still the old way of communicating, get your ass down here now.
Yeah.
One of those
and
deals.
In fact, when I put you guys on mute, there's a really good chance, about 50-50, that I'm yelling at one of my kids and you just don't hear it.
That's what I thought was happening, Dave. Remember when we lost him? I said, he's probably talking to one of his kids, or maybe the cat's in the room and he's trying to get the cat out.
I actually had something drop out there, but there are times that I'm on mute and I'm yelling at the boy or the older one to say, hey, can you do something? So, it happens.
And conversely, Dave, you don't really even text, because I text you, you don't answer me, so you're more into rather calling people. Oh, you do?
Yeah, I called the company. Okay. I refuse. I'm not playing the game.
Well, now I know. And I know never to text you. It's Monday Night Sports Talk. Give us a call, 814-242-4845. You can actually have your voice on the air. And listen, what's cool is when we record it and we do it live Monday night, it'll be on the air for all week. And people can tune in and say, geez, man, I heard you on Monday Night Sports Talk. So we're going to pump up that number as much as we can. Now let's get into hot stove baseball real quick, Chad, because I thought of you. I'm thinking, you know what? Holy crap, they're stealing people from the Nationals now. You know what I mean? And the Mets are loading up, and they're looking to come on, man. The Mets just signed this guy that had been with them before, Cespedes.
Now
he's back in New York again. Now, it's probably not coincidental that, he couldn't reach an agreement, I don't know with what team he was with, but the Mets all of a sudden seem to be having a lot of money. I'll start with you first, Chad, and then get Dave's thoughts.
Well, the Mets are in New York. So money is not an option. You're not going to worry about that. Oh, well,
wait a minute. In the era of Bernie Madoff, you don't think it's still a problem getting money for these people yet? He still hasn't paid his dues back.
Not in New York, I don't think that there's any. I mean, they're not the Yankees, but they could be if they wanted to be.
Right.
The revenue's just a different ballgame when you're in one of those larger cities like that. But I think the Mets needed to make this move. The unfortunate part is they're probably going to end up plopping him in center field, and I don't think he's a center fielder anymore.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that helps them defensively or not. But Cespedes had a pretty good year.
Yeah.
The Mets would not have been in the World Series had he not have gotten traded from the Tigers and then just came on like a house of fire for the Mets at the end of the year. So, I think it's a good move for them. I'm not so sure that he's going to be able to fulfill his whole entire – it's only a 3-year deal. I don't think he's going to put up numbers like he did, last year for them. But I think it's a solid choice.
Yeah.
He had other options. He looked at other places and decided that, you know what? maybe I just like it here in New York. They like me. We had a good thing going. You know, we've got a great pitching staff in place.
And it can't hurt. It can't hurt because, the guy's going to get paid. And then I didn't want to cut you off, but I'm thinking that pitching staff they have. I mean, everybody's back. DeGrom, Harvey, and Dave, can you speak a little bit about that? Because that obviously is going to help the Mets stay in the mix this year.
Oh, yeah. I don't think there's anything that takes them out of the mix. And if they get out of the box, faster, that's really going to put the pressure on the Nats to do better. Because I think there's a lot of expectations on the Nationals as well.
Oh, yeah. And I wanted Chad to talk a little bit about that because, Chad, here again, you got Harper. I mean, you have the pitching staff. What do you expect the Nationals to do this season? Because there's a lot of people, if you think about it. You got the Nats, you got the Mets now. You know the Cubs and the Reds are going to be in there, and the Cardinals in that whole mix in the National League.
Yeah, the Reds won't.
The Reds won't be because they lost their ace, didn't they?
Well, they lost their closer.
They lost everything. They remember they shipped Todd Frazier over to the Chicago White Sox.
That's right.
They're in total. The Reds. Listen, I'm going to make this prediction now. You can record this, baby. The Reds might be the worst team in all of Major League Baseball next year.
Okay.
Take that to
I'm
the
taking
bank.
them out of there then. I'm taking them out of the equation.
Take them out of there. But with that said, the Nationals, it's all about team chemistry.
Okay.
That's what they need to build. They've got a new manager and Dusty Baker coming in. Mm-hmm. Remember Bryce Harper and Jonathan Papelbon had that epic WWF fight in the middle of in the dugout.
Is that going to be a problem this year? Is that still going to be a problem?
You don't know when teams have high expectations and low end results. Something's going to break somewhere along the way. So, that's a chemistry set waiting to see which way it's going to go.
Yeah.
So you just don't know that. The Cubs, to me, guys, listen, we're all Pirates fans,
yes,
deep down in.
Mm-hmm.
Did I just say that? Anyway.
Well, yeah. You did, and we're going to allow you to say it, but I'll have Dave speak to that in a minute. But go ahead.
But anyway, the Cubs are loaded.
Yeah.
And they just added Jason Hayward here, in the offseason. So, the Cubs are clearly the team to beat in the National League. And, by the way,
Joe Madden.
They had the best manager.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Joe Madden's still there, so you can't. Hey, Dave, you and I talked about it briefly last week. Now, I'm going back to the Mets, Matt Harvey, Jacob deGrom, Noah Syndergaard, Steve Matz. I mean, they just look primed to defend their division title. Where's this put the Pirates when it's all said and done? Are we going to have to dick around and win a wild card again this year?
I'd say so. I'd say so. I mean, the one thing to me that's probably the big question early on here is what's your starting rotation?
Yeah.
And if Jeff Locke is part of your starting rotation, you're going nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to pick on one guy in particular, but for every good game that Jeff Locke has, he has about 3 that suck.
Yeah.
And so that's the big question as far as the Pirates go at the start. And then as the season progresses, we'll see what we get there at first base. I'm going to, be wondering if Bell ever gets called up, and gets his opportunity to show what he has there. I was just watching MLB Network, and Hanlon, I think is his name, second baseman, who's playing in Indianapolis. And he was picked as the top 6 in the top 6 of second basemen that are sitting down in the minors waiting to come up into the major leagues by MLB Network. They did a pretty nice piece on him and what he's been able to do there in Indianapolis. I think he hit 286 last year. Yeah. So if you want to compare that to Neil Walker, it's about an even deal. Yeah. So it may not just be Josh Harrison at second. Maybe he's going to get his chance.
Well, Chad, I understand the Mets will have somewhere in the reach of $120 million payroll next year. Now, that kind of blows my mind anymore when you say $120 million. But then again, I'm sitting there thinking, there was a time the Pirates had a payroll of $18 million. You know what I mean? I'm sitting, and I'm thinking, how do you compete with that? But having said that, Bryce Harper, National League MVP, I don't know. Daniel Murphy in the mix there. I can imagine the Mets are just going to whoop on some ass this year. I don't know.
We'll see. Again, it's all about team chemistry and injuries. Injuries will play a large piece of this. The national staff was banged up, and Jason Worth never got a real full year in. Anthony Rendon, the regular the Nationals' regular shortstop or second baseman, third baseman, did not get a full year in. So the Nationals were pretty banged up last year. I'm intrigued by the Pirates. And Dave, I want to go back to their pitching staff. You're right. If Jeff Locke's there, they're in trouble. Mm-hmm. But if Jameson Taillon is able to be there, they're not looking so bad.
Yeah,
they've got some good pitching in the minor leagues waiting to burst at the seams. And Taillon had that Tommy John surgery here a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Which kind of set him back a year. But this guy's special, and he's a big-time talent. He's a number 2 starter behind Garrett Cole, just waiting to happen. So, to me, it's all about the Pirates' offense, and can they replace the leadership that they lost with Neil Walker? But again, I think it's a moot point, and baseball is such a fickle sport. But I think everybody's just playing second place behind the Cubs.
And most of the major league teams are heading to their camps coming up in the next week or two. So we'll keep you posted on what's happening hot stove wise here on the Monday Night Sports Talk, of course, on the airnetwork.net. Chad States Huntington, Dave Shannon in Altoona. Hey, Dave, let me ask you this. Penguins looked pretty healthy the other night against the Canucks. I mean, is the season on a pivot? Are they starting to get a little momentum? How are you seeing that?
I get such a chuckle out of all the minutia that keeps coming up. I still hear this, every game they go out and play, it's a must-win. It's not a freaking must-win
not
game.
This early, no.
They play hockey till the second week of April in the regular season.
Right.
And it's like, I'm sorry, it doesn't have to be settled at this particular point. Yeah, there are certain games that you would like to win, and they refer to those as 4-point swings. Mm-hmm. In other words, like if the Penguins take on the Devils, which right now they're kind of battling at the bottom of the playoff picture with the Devils. If you get a game against New Jersey, which they have tomorrow night,
right?
What they that's a big game, because if they beat the Devils, they get the 2 points. The Devils get none, and that's where you come up with that 4-point swing. If you lose to the Devils, then that's a big deal. They get the 2 points, you get none. So, they're big games, but the bottom line is a majority of their end of the season is in their own conference, in the East and against the metropolitan teams. Heck, they just played their first game against the Flyers for the season. And they have, I think it's 4 more to play against them yet before the season comes to an end. Mm-hmm. So what I see with the Penguins are guys starting to have fun again.
Yeah.
And as soon as Carl Hagelin figures out how Evgeny Malkin works on the ice.
Right.
Because Malkin does a lot of things that he does these drop passes into the middle of nothing. Mm. And his theory behind that, I mean, not that I've talked to him, but I'm sure what he's thinking is someone's coming in behind me, they're getting that puck, and they're going to take a good, healthy shot on goal.
Right.
Hagelin is going to realize that line. And I've heard a lot of talkers. There's people that are out there talking about getting rid of Phil Kessel. Have you watched Phil Kessel play lately?
Well, Kessel was in the mix this weekend.
Have you watched the guy skate? Have you watched him score goals lately? I mean, the team has gelled now.
Right.
I think they like Sullivan. I think their potential is pretty darn good right now. Here's the thing. Can you beat the Caps?
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. It's kind of like what Chad was saying about the Cubs. Who's going to beat the Cubs this year with the way they look?
And sadly to say, we would have beat the Caps yesterday, but they didn't want to come out and play in the snow. So we'll have to take them on another time.
Dave, I'd ask you this. I want to ask you a question because I'm not, I watch hockey intermittently whenever, there's nothing else on. But does Alex Ovechkin still play at the very high level that he once did? And I'll give you a follow-up with that is, does he deserve a championship? Is he one of those Dan Marino type of players that then I guess that's what I'm boiling down to. Is he like a Dan Marino type player that finally deserves to be on a great team that can contend for a title?
I think so. As much as, I think whatever dislike I have for the Great Eight, as he is called, is just based on he's always been a thorn in the Penguins' side.
Yeah.
He's taken some hits on some of the Penguin players over the years that I didn't necessarily agree with. But by the same token, the guy has a skill set that I think he is still playing at the top of his game. I have seen no letdown in that at all. Some would argue, that a lot of the time Ovechkin has taken it easy, where he didn't agree, when Barry Trotz was there behind the bench. He didn't like the way he wanted him to play. He wanted him to play left wing, and Ovechkin wanted to play right wing, and blah, 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 blah. But Ovechkin this year is he's taking advantage of the opportunity. He does have a good team behind him, and it may indeed be his time. The only team I see stopping them would be the Blackhawks right now. Mm-hmm. And we'll see how that works out toward the end of the season as well. But the Pens, back to the Pens. Man, folks, don't go into any panics. Don't buy into what you see on TV or if you read it online or whatever. It's like I am not worried about the Penguins at all at this point in the season, primarily because to me it's still way too early for this. They're in the hunt right now, and they put together a 7-game winning streak. Mm-hmm. Sometime in February. Then you can come and you can start to talk to me about, I don't know, they have to win every game now. No, they don't.
Yeah, if you ever want to jump on Dave's case, by the way, you can always call us up on Monday Night Sports Talk, 814-242-4845. Maybe you see it differently than Dave or Chad does, 814-242-4845.
And if you want to disagree with me, I'll get your ass fired.
Yeah, you will, because he got the Penguins coach fired. Hey, speaking of which, real quick, Dave, if you can mention... they've been trying to sell the Penguins. Is Lemieux trying to get his money out? I mean, what's happening with that? I'm hearing these rumors, or maybe they're true, that they're looking for a buyer for the Penguins. I mean, and I guess any business, that's what you do. You look for a buyer. You hearing anything about that at all?
Oh, I have heard that, that's been out there for a while.
Yeah,
and there was some speculation going on within the Pittsburgh sports writing community and what have you about the fact that maybe the reason they were hanging on to Mike Johnston was because he was a low payroll guy, and it would have made it easier to sell the team.
Yeah,
and so whether that's exactly what.
Well, that really doesn't have anything to do with the coach, though. That would be the GM and probably the principals like Lemieux and some of those people that are involved in the team. I mean,
I don't think the GM has diddly squat to say about sale of the team.
Okay. I'm talking about payroll, though. I mean, when it comes to payroll, I would think he'd be the first guy in line as opposed to a coach.
I don't think Rutherford's making that much money. So, to that end, then there's people that argue that that's why Jim Rutherford's there, too.
Yeah, that's true, too. Keep it low, man.
Bottom line is I have heard the same rumors. Here's one thing I will say. Anybody that would buy that hockey team that would desire to take it away from Pittsburgh would be crazy.
They would be hung at
they'd be crazy. They got a brand new arena.
I agree.
They got a base of operations there.
Right.
It's not like you're going in to salvage a franchise.
Yeah.
You're going in there to keep a franchise going that you can make a lot of money off of.
Hey, next week, remind me to talk to you and Chad, and if anybody else joins us, about that whole debacle with the NFL out in California. But let's now move on a little bit here. Chad, Penn State University Wrestling, still undefeated. The other day I saw where I believe, who they beat? Illinois, Northwestern, I forget who it was. But there are some guys emerging on that team right now that have little experience, but they're beating people as well and taking on sort of part-time roles and filling in. Anything about Penn State this week?
Well, these guys aren't taking on part-time roles. They are on a roll.
Yeah.
Penn State just defeated Illinois 30-15.
Right.
The big match of that whole event was at 157 pounds, where Pennsylvania's freshman Jason Nolf out of Katanning defeated Isaiah Martinez of Illinois. Now, Martinez wasn't just your also-ran type of individual.
Oh, yeah.
He is the returning national champion at 157 pounds and has never been beaten in his college career. Now, he's a sophomore, so, I don't want to say
was he a red shirt?
But he was a red shirt.
Okay.
So he was a redshirt sophomore, undefeated through his first 54 matches, and Jason Nolf pinned him in the second period. That's right, guys. If you don't follow wrestling, he pinned him in the second period. It just didn't beat him. He was beating him 11-3, and then he pinned him.
Wow.
This is how good Penn State is.
Yeah.
They just bring a guy in who's in his first year of competition, and he pins a returning national champ. So Penn State this week will have 4 guys on their team ranked number 1 in the country.
Yeah.
That's how good these guys are. That's how special this unit is. From a tournament perspective, they're unbeatable. From a dual meet perspective, there are a couple holes because of some injuries. Heavyweight is a 6-point swing waiting to happen. They just had an injury to their 184 pounder, and 141's a little tough. So there's 3 weights where they have some holes.
Yeah.
But from a tournament perspective, you're not going to touch them. They're just that good.
Wow. Yeah. And
when's that, Chad? When's that BJC? There's a couple of BJC duels.
Ohio State.
One they already had. They defeated Wisconsin, and Ohio State will be next Friday night.
Oh, okay. That should be a hell of
and
a
match.
I
will be
there,
at
man.
that one, so I have my ticket ready to go. So I will.
Let me ask you, what's the cost for a ticket? Like even for some half decent seats at Penn State Wrestling, I have no idea.
In Rec Hall, it's $12.
Okay. Boy, what
That's
a bargain that is.
To see the best wrestling team in the country, it's $12.
Holy crap.
So you're basically going to go to, it's like watching PIAA states amplified. I mean, because you're seeing all the champions wrestling for Penn State at that point in time. Now, over to BJC, they're going to jack it up to 16.
Okay.
But regardless, I just spent
that's still a nice price.
2 of the top teams in the entire country in a great venue wrestle each other. So it'll be a fun evening.
Yeah, what a night that'll be. We'll talk more about that coming up next week, too, on Monday Night Sports Talk. Chad States in Huntington, Dave Shannon in Altoona. We're going a little long tonight, guys, because I wanted to get some of this stuff in. And just basically, let's wrap it up with high school wrestling. Chad, you've been following the Huntington Bearcats, and we had that match last week with Penns Valley. They've had some tournaments, but and I understand they also did they wrestle in Altoona recently, or
they
what was
just
that?
defeated out. Yeah,
that's what I thought.
Altoona last Thursday.
And not that I'm throwing that in Dave's face because he's an Altoona alum, but Dave, it used to be different. Like back in the days of Marty Rusnak when he was the coach. Huntington had troubles beating Altoona. Well, those days are over now, man, because Altoona got spanked the other night, didn't they, Chad?
And here's a question for everybody involved, mainly Dave. I don't know how well versed he is with Altoona athletics, but what's wrong with that system? I mean, that is one of the larger school districts in the entire state.
A factory school, we call it.
They are very mediocre or below average in a lot of things. And I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know if it's politics. I don't know what it is. But
it's
I think
choice number 2
of the school. Yeah.
Go for choice number 2,
politics. Yeah, that could be
because it's gotten in the way.
Just an absolute shame.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. It is because they have some of the best facilities that you could think of.
Yeah.
And they have the ability to have. There are so many athletes, and you know what? A lot of these high school kids end up making the move from junior high to high school, and they don't continue on in the sport that they were doing in junior high, and it's because they don't like the way things have been set up.
Right.
The school board is partially to blame for this, although there are new school board members.
There's been
and we're hoping that will make a difference in the way things are handled as far as athletics go.
Imagine that school, Dave, and I don't know how many graduated the year you graduated, but when my son Josh graduated in 95, and he was on the state cross-country team with Lee Baranek. All those years, they won the state title. They graduated 800, 900 students that year, and generally speaking, Altoona and maybe Hollidaysburg, maybe State College, Johnstown no longer graduates that many, but they're somewhere close to 800 to 900 students a year. But here again, I think, Chad, what he's saying is typically, because of the politics, the size of that school district, Dave remembers when they had how many junior highs, Dave? 3? Logan?
Yes.
Keith?
Yeah,
and
Logan, Roosevelt, and Keith.
Now what happens is they built this new junior high, if you will, which combined Keith and Roosevelt, and they have teams, 2 teams for football, probably 2 wrestling teams, one called Maroon and one called White, I think is how they work that, 2 cheerleading squads, 2 bands. I mean, can you imagine a kid not being able to raise to a certain standard because now you've got all this confusion down in junior high and middle school, and the high school can't even bring their programs to these junior highs because it's totally different. I don't know. So I'm not making excuses for Altoona, but I know the system. I know that when you get into a factory school, and that's what they call them, when they get that large, the emphasis isn't put on the student anymore, Chad.
You know, and that's a shame. They have one of the best football coaches in the entire state, and they're just letting it go to waste.
Yeah.
And that is just an absolute shame what's happening over there.
And like Dave said, they have the facilities. I mean, you know, I'm sure you've been at Mansion Park. Dave and I walked into the locker room, first class, man, you know, weight equipment, television screens. I mean, they put that in there years ago. They've had how many turfs in there, Dave, since back in the original turf they put in there? Probably 2 or 3.
6.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a while.
6.
Yeah. So having said that, I don't know. You know, those days may be over. State College is struggling, too. They're a large school. I mean, for football, what do they suit up 100 kids?
What are you looking at? Let's step back for a second. What are you looking at again?
Yeah.
A big politics school district.
Exactly, yeah. So it does play in it. Thank God little school districts like ours, Huntington, we don't have politics down here. So, you know, hell.
No, none.
Hey, with that, I better be moving on because we went over like 10 minutes overtime this week, guys. But, hey, thanks for joining us on Monday Night Sports Talk. Join us again next Monday night and every Monday night from 7 to 8 p.m. on the airnet.net with Dave Shannon live from Altoona, Chad States from Huntington, yours truly, Greg Banks in the studio. You can always call us up, 814-242-4845. Plus, you can hit us up on Skype. We'll tell you more about that coming up next week. Meanwhile, thanks for joining us, and we'll check you out next week here on the airnetwork.net. Thank you, guys.
Good night, everyone.